in the country and ultimately catch on. You know, what's interesting in the state is, well, a lot of these things seem, wow, that's a whole lot of trouble to go through, and if you're in the development community, do you even want to go through this? The fact is the development community is catching on, and so is industry. I mean, for example, in construction projects, when you're building and putting a new tile counter in your kitchen, normally you get the stuff out of the squeeze thing, and it's full of petroleum products, and you know, who knows what the emissions are off of that. Now they've developed a whole line. I mean, companies are developing whole lines of green products that do the same thing, but don't use hydrocarbons, for example. And they're readily available in stores in California. You look on a builder's webpage for who builds homes out in that state, and they're all on board with it. The idea being it's not that hard of a push at this point. So I think you'll start seeing action there. But whether it actually reduces emissions in the long run is another question. What are the global implications? Hard to say. Are more radical measures needed? Maybe. And one thing that's sort of the big elephant in the room is population. And in the end, you know, you can do all you want, but as long as the world's population expands and they need places to live and places to go, you can do land use strategies that encourage people to live near where they work, or you can have green building materials, but you have more of everything. And so it's hard to translate population reduction into policy that's workable, because people resist that idea. But in the end, that has to be addressed, I think, to be part of the solution in some way. By the way, go back. This is an actual globe, a photo of a globe in Bodie, California, which is a ghost town in the eastern Sierra, an actual ghost town. And this is in a schoolhouse, and this globe was probably in use in 1890. But I just thought a desiccated old globe was appropriate for this slide. And you know, I just thought, again, a parting shot from the Brady Bunch I thought was appropriate here. It's all about change and responding to change. Peter Brady was a philosopher well ahead of his time. And on that note, I'm open to questions, and I certainly don't mind taking the discussion anywhere you want. I don't know how much time there is, but again, thank you very much, and appreciate your time.
Okay, we have time, maybe 10 minutes or so for questions.
I have a couple questions. One short one is, has anybody looked into limiting logging in Humboldt County as a carbon sink?
Yeah, I think that's Humboldt County, for those who don't know, is in the far northwest corner of California. It's a very rainy, woody county. Logging is a big deal up there. And the environmental movement is a big deal up there too. There you have a two-headed snake. You've got the loggers and you've got the environmentalists. Has there been talk about limiting the logging? There has been limited logging through environmental laws, actually. And what happens is you end up having, you know, the tires slashed of California Fish and Game trucks, and you have people getting shot when they go into properties. That's what happens there. So you have a very strong regulatory response to do something about it, but you've got a real entrenched industry. Yeah.
My other question was, how many EIRs actually get stopped? I mean, with that many coming in, you know, are there actually projects that don't go ahead, or
Yeah.
do most of them just pass?
When I referred to 1,600 documents coming in a 6-month period, they're not all environmental impact reports. There's lower level documents, but how many of them pass? The idea being a project as an application comes forward and tagged onto the back of it is an environmental document, which is nothing more than information to let a decision maker make a decision about the project. So how many of those end up stopping the project? None are intended to stop the project, but how many of them have that effect? I think what you end up with, and it's a really good, is it worth moving forward anyway? I don't know.
There are things that the government can do, and simple can part of it, right?
I'm gonna you guys continue, because I just want to get some more questions.
Yeah.
We'll
One
have
question.
some-
Based on the climate change study the state is doing, do you think the state could force cities to revise their zoning and land use regulations to actually build in a different way to reduce emissions?
They already are, not so much on the climate side, but in other policy issues, housing, for example, and the local cities and counties resist it mightily. They resent having any state control over what they want to do. But yeah, there's a top-down approach that is feared by the local agencies. But I think there's going to be something like that coming as a result. Yes.
My question is a continuation of what he has asked. If a small town says, we neither have the money nor the expertise to go ahead and do this analysis, and assuming the state is mandating this, so the state will take them to court,
Right.
and they will say this methodology is not clear,
Right.
as you say.
Right.
So on what basis do the courts decide?
They haven't figured that out. I think we're right at that spot, actually. What's happened so far is the court has sided with the state to force cities to deal with the issue. And I know plenty of people in small city stacks who are throwing their hands up. What do we do? I got a call from a guy in a city called Grover Beach just last week. Says, we need to deal with AB 32. You got to help me. And that's what he said. He just called me up, but I have to call him back. I can't call him back because I'm here. But actually, I should call him back. But what do we do? And I don't know what he wants me to do. But I think the idea being is he's getting pressure politically, and I'm not sure from where, to deal with the climate change issue. And I think where we'll end up is small towns are going to go into the radar screen for a while. You're not going to have anything happen there that's anything different than in the past. Some small towns which have never had much political activism are never going to have the political activism. So you'll just see things go as always for a long time. The larger cities or the more politically active cities, you'll see a difference.
About the economics of it all. I mean, so are you saying that the contractors and builders are seeing more of an economic benefit for making these restrictions for greenhouse gases, or do they see it as more of an economic cost? And if there is a cost involved, they're just passing it on to the consumers.
Yeah, right now the development community sees it more as a cost and a burden to deal with. There are some who don't, and I think it's becoming more and more prevalent. In fact, some are seeing it, they're actually more forward-thinking ones are looking at it as an opportunity. They actually market their houses differently. They get a different clientele, and they can sell their houses for more money because the perception is a better home. And they have a better resale value, frankly. So there's that happening. But yeah, in the end, they pass their costs on to the homeowner, which in California, as in the rest of the country, you know, the market's been down from a housing perspective, particularly there, because there have been such rampant speculation and driving up of housing costs since 2000 to about 2006. Things are way overvalued, and now it's crashed down. And so there's not much movement in terms of development right now. So maybe it's a good time, because you don't have a lot of new development happening there. It's a good time to get regulations in place. But yeah, the people will pay the cost.
So is the state setting a good example? The state itself?
You mean in terms of their own practices?
The government?
Depends on the department. You know, there's, like with a lot of state governments, there's a million different agencies, and some are run better than others. I think it's a mixed bag. I would say that there's a sincere effort on the part of certain agencies to really try to figure it out. The Air Resources Board, Office of Planning and Research. But they try to carry that into, you know, just their day-to-day operations. You know, let's get rid of the plastic water bottles in our office. You know, for example, my wife works at the California Water Resources Board, and they had plastic water bottles in her office, and they're the Water Resources Board. They should, you know, they can do things differently. Take it out of the tap if you want to, put a filter on it. But it's a hit and miss situation.
Yeah, in regards to the Clean Air Act, I believe it allows states to adopt stricter standards if they want to. But this has to be approved by the EPA.
Right.
And the state of California has always been allowed to do this in the
Right.
past and been encouraged to do so. But recently, with the greenhouse gas emissions that they've been trying to reduce, the EPA turned down their recent proposal, I believe. Is that correct?
I'm not sure. That may be true. I would say in general, California standards, air quality standards are more stringent than the federal ones and have been.